Well, I'm sure a few more people will keep joining us, but in the interest of time, I'm excited to kick us off today. Happy Friday to everyone. Lovely to see all your faces on camera. As I say every time, we are always excited to have you off camera, even if you're in your Friday work from home outfit. It's good to see everyone's faces and feel connected in that way. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Alicia from our board to welcome us and intro our topic and our presenter today.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We are so glad that you're here. If this is your first time joining an FWA event, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here as part of this incredible community. And for everybody that are familiar faces, hello again, friends. We're so glad that you're here. So setting the stage for our meeting today, obviously we want to celebrate Women's History Month and celebrate all of you, but for today, it's also really important to honor ourselves. All of us are juggling countless responsibilities, expectations, and pressures every day, every weekend. And one thing that I find for me and many of my peers is we often push aside our own mental well-being as the last priority. And so for today, we want to change that narrative. We want to take 45 minutes and reprioritize ourselves, our mental health, our resilience, our ability to thrive personally and professionally. So to help guide this conversation, I am really honored to introduce Alexa Pickering. She is a licensed therapist and she specializes in anxiety, stress, burnout, and life transitions. She is going to talk today about some tools to help us recognize the signs of burnout, to build resilience, and to take control of mental well-being, because every single one of us deserves to feel supported, empowered, and at our best, which is why this community helps us to hold ourselves accountable to do just that. So before I dive in, I want to emphasize, especially for new members, that this is a safe space. We are recording this meeting, but when we get to Q&A, we will turn off recording. I intend to ask Alexa some sticky questions so that you don't have to if you feel uncomfortable. But you are welcome to engage, to ask questions, to listen, whatever feels right for you. The goal is that you leave after these 45 minutes feeling more empowered, informed, and supported. So with that, I am very honored to hand it over to Alexa. Thank you so much for being here, Alexa. Let's get started.
Hi there. Thank you, Alicia. Thanks for that intro. Hi, guys. I'm Alexa. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to chat with you all a little bit about mental health in the workplace today. Um, my previous experience, so I'm in private practice now, mostly working with adults, but I have previous experience working in several environments, social service agencies, hospitals, healthcare. And when I worked in a primary care office, my role was to talk to patients who kind of came in and told their doctor, oh, I'm under a lot of stress. I've got a lot going on. Doctor said, hey, we have a social worker, talk to her. And so it probably would be no exaggeration to say the majority of those people, something was going on in their workplace. That's what was bringing them in, whether it was, a demanding schedule, a tough boss, unclear expectations, team issues, whatever, or even difficulty finding a job. Career and workplace is just a huge stressor, as you guys all know. So between those patients and then the clients I see in private practice now, I've probably talked to hundreds of people about their workplace stress over the years. So want to kind of today share some common issues I hear about in the workplace that negatively impact employees' mental health, as well as some things that hopefully potentially could reduce burnout and workplace stress and things like that. So first, I've got a little slide deck for you guys. Kind of gonna jump into some common terms. So some main buzzwords. I feel like anxiety, depression, stress, burnout, they're so commonly talked about now. Everybody has heard of them, right? But I want to break down a few specific differences between these. So the only true diagnosable disorder out of these is generalized anxiety disorder. Anxiety, the word by itself, is really a symptom. So it is a symptom that's usually a side effect, could be caused by something, right? You could be anxious because you have a big meeting that day. You are having anxiety that morning. That doesn't mean you have a generalized anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder is categorized by a few key symptoms that I'm going to go through really quick. So first one is excessive worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months about several different areas in life. Some symptoms like restlessness, being on edge, easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating, irritability, muscle tension, difficulty sleeping, and those are all happening more days than not for at least 6 months. And then the clinical significance of these. So these symptoms are causing clinically significant distress or impairment in your social, work, other important areas of functioning. So that is just a very, very brief overview of that, but I like to differentiate the difference between, somebody who, is truly has an anxiety disorder and they maybe are taking medication or they're in therapy, and then someone who is experiencing anxiety as the symptom. So someone with an anxiety disorder meets that criteria above, and the worries or stress they experience is seemingly never ending. Weeks and months go by, and even as situations may change or improve, they're still operating at that heightened level, and there's always something they're worried about. Moving on to the next, stress. So below that, so stress is an acute feeling usually brought on by a deadline, a tough project, something situational, or just juggling several things at once. Again, short period of time, acute. Someone who is burned out, that's likely someone who hasn't taken a break or a day off in months. They're burning the candle at both ends. They're not doing their usual routines or self-care. Maybe those have fallen off. They've told themselves they don't have time. They're under a strict deadline. They need to take a break and incorporate positive coping skills and activities into their routine and maybe change up something about their workload or schedule. Again, a lot of times this is situational. I mean, ideally, we don't want to be burned out for years. It should hopefully be a short-term thing. And if you're hearing this and thinking to yourself, oh man, it's been years. Well, okay, that's probably a part of the problem, and we will get to some strategies for that in a bit. So to put it simply, you can feel stressed or burnout without having a diagnosed anxiety disorder, right? You can have a diagnosed anxiety disorder without being burnt out. So I think the distinction between these three terms is important, whether it's you yourself that's trying to determine kind of where you fall into these, or if you have team members coming to you who, have these things going on. So if you've got team members, assessing and asking questions around these feelings or symptoms can kind of help you understand, depending on your rapport with them, if it's appropriate to suggest maybe they're burnt out, maybe you ask them they should take some PTO, help them problem solve, figure that out. If it's more severe, maybe they could utilize, your employee assistance program or some therapy. And again, we'll get into that later, but just some good differentiations to make. So moving on to the next slide. So over 50% of people report that workplace stress impacts them at home. That number's not surprising, but it's still a pretty big number. And just really goes to show how much of our workplace stress we tend to take home. So I'm going to share a few of the most common workplace issues that I kind of hear about from clients. Inflexible schedule. So now more than ever, return to office policies are being rolled out. For better or for worse, many people have been working from home for the last 5 years. So they may have created routines around exercise, childcare, or other obligations, and now they're having to change those routines. So that is causing a lot of, stress for people having to make those changes. Expectations. I know this sounds vague, but honestly, I think they're the number one thing that most people's challenges, boil down to. So every single person, no matter what your level at work, deals with expectations. If you're finding yourself having issues at work, think about the problem and ask yourself, what is the expectation here? If you don't know the expectation, okay, that means it's unclear expectations, and that's a good place to start. How do we make that clearer? If the expectations are too high, okay, we need to have a conversation with somebody about that, right? If there's too many of them, just asking yourself, how does this maybe, boil down to expectations, and where do I need to start? Who do I need to have a conversation with about the fact that these expectations are problematic in some way? Difficult clients or projects. So it's important if you're working with accounts or clients outside of your agency that you have appropriate support. If you're the manager, check in and see how you can support your team members who are running point on the projects or events. If you're the employee, take the initiative to come up with ways you need support and then take those to your manager. So it's really important, for people to feel like, especially when we know that we're in charge of something difficult and no one's checking on us, like that's really hard. So if you're the one coming from above, check in with your team members. And if you're the one feeling unsupported, you've got to ask for that support, that you need to let people know that you need it. Communication problems, again, sounds obvious, but people have different communication styles. Maybe your boss is really direct, you're more passive. Maybe you like a Teams call where you can see facial expressions and tone inflection, and your coworker just loves to send passive aggressive emails. Either way, communication and finding compromises and ways to, best communicate amongst your team members, like that's another thing. If you're struggling with dynamics at work, look at the communication styles and see what's happening there. And then lack of appreciation. So sometimes when the work you do is always challenging, and some of these logistical changes, just there really aren't a lot of practical changes that can be made to your job. Just knowing you have support honestly goes a long way. So voicing your support and appreciation to your team or asking for it from your boss makes a big difference. We feel so much less alone when someone is checking in on us, asking how we're handling the stress, offering to be a listening ear. So all of these workplace problems can lead to stress, anxiety, and burnout. Some things are unavoidable, but I just want to highlight them because if you're noticing, stress or anxiety within yourself or your team members, these are good areas to start with to examine and see if any changes can be made.
Hey, Alexa, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I think for the lack of appreciation, if you're in a leadership role, something great that you can do that I've seen work well where I am today is in Slack or in Teams to create an appreciation channel and to encourage a few other people within leadership positions in the business as well to use it and set the stage and start doing that. And our appreciation Slack channel where I am now, I mean, there's like 2 to 3 in there a day. So that's something, if you're in a position of leadership where you could do that, a really nice way to foster that.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Great ideas. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So I'm going to go through some practical strategies for self-care. I'm going to try to not be too long-winded. Normally, I was joking with them. I usually have an hour with clients, right? And so I'm like, okay, how do I condense? But I just want to go through a few kind of practical things that you guys can do just like immediately, right away, to try to leave stress at work when you head into your evenings. So the first thing I suggest to all my clients who report work as their major stressor that they set a literal timer on their phone. Allow themselves 15 minutes to vent to whoever they usually vent to about work each day. No more than that. Unless just something crazy happens, right? Layoffs or your boss is leaving, like, fine, you can make an exception. But like most days, even better if it's just a brief 5 minutes, here's how the day went, but no more than 15. This 15-minute rule may seem like a small amount of time, but the time you spend outside of work talking about work, that's not insignificant. It plays on your psyche. It activates your fight or flight. Like whatever perceived threats that are happening at work, they're now right there. They're in your kitchen. They're in your living room. They're in your bedroom. Why are we bringing them here? They should not be at home, in our home, So that makes our fight or flight feel like nowhere is really safe from these stressors or threats. So setting up your evening routine or weekend time to make sure you're not clocking in verbally is super important. I love like if you walk your dog at night or something like that. I even like to do that venting on the walk or somewhere not in your home, ideally. So even if you think venting is helpful and, oh, but I need to talk it out, I promise it's not that helpful to do it every night. It's not helping as much as you think. So ask your partner or whoever you normally vent to hold you accountable with the 15 minutes. So next, time management. I will link this book somewhere, I think at the end, I put a link to it, but I highly recommend a book called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. Maybe some of you guys have read it. The gist of this book is we only have a finite amount of time on this earth, and so we really shouldn't spend it trying to maximize productivity and get everything done so we can relax later, because as we all know, later never comes. We will always find something else to do, pick up another task, do something else, fill our plate. The time will always get taken somehow. So this book doesn't actually teach you time management. It teaches you that time is not something that you can manage. So you have to curate the later into your everyday routine. So I just put a few ideas for this. Obviously, you could go a million ways with this, but a few that I like. So blocking an hour of your calendar. I don't care what hour, whatever's easiest to sneak away, just go on a walk, do yoga, sit outside, move your body in some way. Plan a long lunch. This could just mean leaving your desk to eat lunch or going out to lunch with a friend, someone else. Just, again, as often as is realistic for you. But again, I like to block the calendar for this so that you make sure you actually take the time for it. Planning fun in your downtime. So it's not just I get home, I maybe exercise, I do all my tasks, I make dinner, I whatever, and then I watch TV and I scroll on my phone and then I go to bed, right? I cannot tell you how many of my clients, when I give that example, they're like, no, yeah, that's literally what I do. That's like exactly to a T what I do. Not amazing for us, right? We want actual fun, hobby. So join a pickleball league, a book club, a brunch club, a pottery class, something once a week that gets you out, that includes other people that you actually look forward to, not just exercise, going to the gym. That's love it. Love like doing a Pilates class. That's amazing. You've got friends there, but like something that doesn't feel like a has to, like a must, well, I need to exercise. Just pick something that you don't maybe need to do, you want to do it. So things like grocery delivery or pickup, again, I know it sounds obvious, but when you think about your 4,000 weeks, it's crazy to think about how much of that time we've probably spent at the grocery store. And maybe, if we like grocery shopping, that's fine. But if that's not necessarily one of your favorite tasks, get your time back. Get it delivered, do a pickup order, any other things like that. We've automated a lot of things in 2025. And so I just feel like there's really no reason to spend a ton of time doing some of these monotonous things that, like, if we don't really find enjoyment from them, find a way to outsource it.
Alexa, can I share a hack?
Yeah.
As
Please.
anybody who knows me on here knows, I am obsessed with ChatGPT and Gemini AI, which Gemini AI is free if you have a Gmail account. You can put into it as a prompt, and this has been a monstrous time saver for me. I am a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 children. Build me a high protein, low carb meal plan for dinner for the next 5 days and include a grocery shopping list
Love
and
that.
give me the associated recipes. And it is a game changer.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's anything like that. I love it.
I was just going to jump in because I also love AI, and you can also do similar to Alicia said and put in, if you want to look at, if you have ingredients in your house, you can do a similar thing to her prompt, include the ingredients you would like to be in the meals, and it'll work it all for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything like that. Like I am all for like, time is money, right? And like also our time is our time. So anything you can do to make things easier. I mean, I've had clients that, again, in my mind, I think this stuff sounds obvious, but I've had clients who come in and I just talk about like a few of these different things, right? And they are like, oh my gosh, like, yes, of course, I've heard of these things, but I haven't actually done it. And I had somebody recently who implemented like Sam's Club delivery and like Instacart pickups and things like that. And she's like, I'm amazed at how much time I got back and I don't have to take 2 screaming kids into the grocery store, And I'm like, yeah, why were you taking 2 screaming kids to what were we doing? Like, that's not fun for anybody. So, obviously, I know circumstances are different. Not everybody has, someone else to watch the kids, but that's why it's like do a pickup. If they're screaming in the car, it's less time, right? It's less time. So, yeah, so automate things, outsource things, all of that. And last one, just self-care. Everyone's so generic. Everyone throws the word self-care around like candy, but I mean, really trying to think about what it means to you. So specific things, mani-pedis, massages, hair appointments, acupuncture. If these maybe used to be part of your routine and you've fallen off, this is maybe the burnout crew. We need to get back in here. We need to get these things back into your schedule. Communicate with whoever you need to carve out this time for yourself. Get the childcare lined up, get the schedule arranged, tell your team you're going to be out of office Fridays at 4, whatever it is you need to do it. So these are just a few ideas to get you guys started, and I'm sure you can brainstorm more, as well. And then I think, yeah, next slide, I'm just going to go over a few very like practical, these are like coping skills and strategies I give to all my clients that are really more based on like, if experiencing like acute stress or anxiety. So these are things you can do at the drop of a hat. You can do it 5 seconds before a big pitch, big meeting, you're nervous, anything like that. So first one I love, it's called 777 breathing. I'm going to demonstrate it because sometimes people think I'm telling people to hold your breath for like way long, and I'm not. So you breathe in through your nose for 7 counts, just nice and slow, like nice and slow for 7 counts, and then breathe out through your mouth for 7. Really slow, way slower than I'm going. And you do it 7 times in a row. What I like about this, it slows your heart rate, cools your body temperature, does a lot of good things for your fight or flight. It's also distracting. So if your brain is spiraling about a million things, if you're having to count in for 7 counts, out for how many times have I done it in a row? Your brain is focused on that now, and you're less on the spiral that you were on. So if you're experiencing like kind of the more generalized anxiety where you're anxious all day, every day, I recommend doing that 3 times a day, not just when you're stressed. Do it in the morning commute, lunchtime, and then before you go to bed. Just every day, whether you actually are under extreme stress or not, just incorporate it into your routine. But then it's also a really good one that you can do anywhere, anytime, in the moment too. Next one, grounding. So there's a 5 senses exercise. You guys probably have heard about a lot of these, but this one, you look around the room and name 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. Again, that can just be, let me come back from my spiral and be right here in this moment. What's going on? I'm safe. I'm in this room. I can see these things around me. Like, I know I'm okay. Next one, the 5 senses cocoon. This is a good one for outside of work. I love this one for just like a self-care night at home. Basically, wrap yourself in your favorite cozy blanket or PJs, get your favorite scents going, put on lotion, a candle, turn on your favorite music or movie, eat your favorite snacks, and do it all at once. You're just basically giving yourself a big self-care hug and hitting all of your senses. And it should help you feel, pretty relaxed in that moment. Spelling things that you see around the room helps kind of distract your brain and makes your brain realize you're not in physical danger. So again, this is good if like nerves right before a meeting or something like that, something acute. It's just a distraction for your brain, and just can help you kind of get out of your head a little bit. And then physical grounding. So you check in and kind of relax each part of your body. So, wiggle your toes, swirl your ankles around, check in with your knees. Are they locked? Are they tight? And then obviously shoulders, I think for all of us, that's a big one, so tense and relax your shoulders, kink out your neck, just really like check in and say, okay, have I relaxed every single body part? You're probably going to feel at least a tiny bit better after you do that. You will probably recognize and notice that every single muscle in your body was tensed. So that's a good place to start. And then journaling before bed. People get real worked up when I say journaling. I don't mean it doesn't need to be Dear Diary, here's all my emotions, but just like, what's going to come into my head when I try to fall asleep? Because I think most people, you go all day. The second your head hits the pillow, okay, now our brains are just on fire with everything we didn't get done, everything we have to do tomorrow, just a constant swirl. So I tell people like 30 minutes, maybe an hour, sometime before bed, before you lay down, go through and kind of just jot down, what appointment did I forget to make today? Okay, I'm going to set a reminder right now on my phone to do that. We can send emails, we can send texts now, right? So do those. Oh, I forgot to ask my mother-in-law what we're supposed to bring for Easter. Okay, go ahead and send that text for her for tomorrow, right? So any of those little to-dos that we don't want to necessarily like get into at 8 p.m., but it's like we kind of want to get the groundwork laid for them for the next day. Just take like 10, 15 minutes and do that. Write stuff down. If anything emotional happened that day that you really didn't get to deal with because you had 2 screaming children on your arm or somebody, you had a busy evening, that's maybe a good time to sit down and be like, okay, well, wow, that person really did hurt my feelings. How do I want to handle that? And kind of do that. So setting aside that specific time rather than just head hits the pillow, because, avoidance, while seemingly making us productive and like we're a machine, it's not the answer. You're going to have to face these things or they will catch up with you, probably at a really inconvenient time, is what I and most of my clients have learned. So you want to deal with these things as you go. Okay. So kind of moving to the next slide. So more than 85% of employees surveyed in 2021 reported that actions from their employer would help their mental health. Again, I think not a surprise to anyone, but that's a big number, huge number. And so really makes us think, okay, as workplaces, what can we do? So moving on to the next slide. So want to talk about a few strategies. These are mainly things that either I in past work environments or my clients have talked about and implemented that were helpful. And we can chat about these more too. You guys can workshop them in your own offices and amongst your own teams that could be tailored to your specific workplace. I'm just going to give, some general ideas that have been helpful. So office hours. So if you're a manager, block an hour or two a week on your calendar that your team knows are your office hours where they can come and discuss concerns with you. Just having kind of that, doesn't have to be an open door policy all the time, but just something where your team knows like, okay, I can find my boss from these hours to these hours. And so if I'm needing that support, I can go to her then. That also, might help with some of the like emails you're getting at 9 p.m. from people. Like if they know they have a dedicated time that you're available, they're more likely to utilize that dedicated time and hopefully not send you emails like in the middle of the night. So could be a win-win for both the people utilizing the office hours and you as setting them. Support your staff in like taking time away for therapy. So if they need to leave at 4:30 instead of 5 every other Tuesday, let them make that half hour up over lunch or somewhere else, or even better, don't make them make it up at all. But obviously I know there's policies that are out there, but just be supportive. I've had a lot of clients who haven't been able, they've maybe started therapy and their work just made it too difficult to leave. Like they just could not get away from work and they got a few sessions in had to stop coming to therapy. And that to me feels really, I don't know, frustrating. And I usually refer them out to a therapist who does like weekends and, evenings or whatever. But like, even I see people at 5 o'clock and people can't even get away for that sometimes. So really, if you're the manager and you have some power over that, be supportive of them taking that time. Employee assistance programs. So find out what your workplace offers. Most big companies offer an employee assistance program that will allow you a few free sessions with therapists that are contracted with the program. If you work somewhere smaller, see what other initiatives can be done. Even if you gave a $300 like self-care bonus or something, that would equal about 3 sessions like that an EAP would cover. So just see if there's creative ways to like support people in, supporting their mental health. Another thing that could be helpful is, what insurance your company offers, right? And so let's just say it's Blue Cross Blue Shield. Could somebody in the team or whatever come up with a list of therapists? Psychology Today is a great website to check out, but could someone come up with a list of therapists in your area who take Blue Cross Blue Shield, and could that be published somewhere? I don't know, just a little bit of like ease of access to let people, a lot of people don't know where to start when finding a therapist. So just things that could remove some barriers. So setting strict boundaries and answering emails and calls when off the clock, encouraging others to do the same. Best way to, talk about boundaries is by modeling boundaries, right? So if you have good boundaries, scheduling doing a schedule send on your emails. So maybe the way that your schedule is, you're sending emails at 10 p.m. at night, or you're responding to them at 10 p.m. at night because maybe you weren't working from 3 to 5 because you had something else going on. Great. Schedule send that email to the morning. You don't need that person to be receiving it at 10 p.m. because what if they don't want to, they don't want to see that coming in at 10 p.m. Not everybody has their notifications silenced, right? So just thinking about that and scheduling your text and your emails so that even if your schedule is different and you're up later, everybody else doesn't have to be. So
Alexa, I want to jump in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in real quick because I have a customer that has a really great like signature. In their signature it says, my working hours may not be the same as your working hours. Do not feel obligated to respond outside of your normal working hours. And I know schedule sends a great thing, but I love when I see that in his emails because it just reminds me I work some odd hours that like, yes. He's sending it, but he doesn't mean I need to answer it, even though he did send it to me on Sunday morning.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's I had in here later too that like depending on what your company's policies are, like what I do on my voicemail, so when clients call me, my voicemail message says like this voicemail is monitored from the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you leave a message outside of those hours, we'll return your call the following business day. You know, working in healthcare for a long time kind of set me up to do that pretty much. If you call your doctor's office, that's what it says. And so that's what I do. So that way people know if you leave me a voicemail at 10 p.m., it's even 6 p.m. It won't be till the next day. And so if you could even put it in your email. I know you guys probably email more than do phone calls, but like putting it on your Teams message or putting it in your email signature, just something that like, says this email inbox is monitored from these hours and I will, do my best to respond. Like we shouldn't, it sucks that we even have to think we have to do that, right? But people can be demanding and, it's 2 hours later and you haven't responded and it's a crisis, right? It's just like it really is hard to put boundaries in place, especially as women, especially, as a lot of us can, I'm sure, tend to be people pleasers.
Alexa, can I share one other thing that's recent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I work for a small company, as many people on here probably do as well. And we implemented an anonymous annual survey. And one of the pieces of feedback that I was very clear about in that survey was that our leadership team needs to have better boundaries and set a better example for the rest of the team on scheduled send and knowing the difference between like a glass ball and a cotton ball that you're balancing. And cotton balls don't need to be sent to anybody at 9 p.m. Even if that's when you're working, you do a scheduled
Yep.
send.
Yeah.
So if you guys are in a position where you can't candidly have that feedback with your C-suite, you can use anonymous company surveys to provide that feedback.
That's great. And this is great because this is all of like the corporate, stuff that I don't, when you guys were talking about the team appreciation teams, like I work by myself now. And so I'm the only emails I'm getting are from my literal clients being like, can we reschedule? Whatever. Like I don't all of this stuff is so great. And I'm glad you guys can like share some of this because it's been a minute. And even when I did work, I was in healthcare and that's just can be a little bit different. So those are great. So yeah, let's see. Oh, and then the last thing I had on here was kind of doing a monthly teams outing. When I did work in healthcare, the social work team, we would meet at a coffee shop once a month for just like an hour. It was just an informal, and I know a lot of you guys work remotely, but even just doing a coffee Zoom where everybody gets a hot beverage of their choice and 9 a.m. you hop on and you kind of like cut the work talk. You kind of just more, how is everybody? Any, anything coming up? Oh my gosh, you're getting married this month. That's so exciting. Oh, you just took a vacation, a little bit more personal, a little bit more, informal, just to really, make your team feel supported and feel like you all care about each other more than just outside of, did you get this deliverable done? That kind of pressure, I just feel like can be really, really challenging. And so having a little bit more of a warm and fuzzy, supportive meeting, even just once a month, I think, can be helpful, just to get people kind of out of that zone. So I think that was my last slide. So that was kind of what I had. I know I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Alicia, at this point, and we can chat some more.
Yeah, guys, so we'll go into for the next 9 minutes kind of a Q&A approach. And I know questions here can be a little bit tricky. We are going to stop recording. So none of this will be recorded if you